Story number one. It was my third week working the night shift at Walmart. The store was different after dark. The bright fluorescent lights cast long, lonely shadows between the aisles. I mostly restocked shelves and helped the occasional late-night shopper. It was easy money, or so I thought. One night, as I was organizing the toy section, I heard it for the first time. A soft, dragging sound, like something being pulled across the floor in the clothing department. I figured it was just Jan, the other night worker, moving stock. But when I checked, nobody was there. The sound stopped as soon as I stepped into the aisle. Shrugging it off, I went back to work. The next few nights were uneventful until I started noticing the mannequins. They were just typical store mannequins, faceless and pale. But sometimes, I'd find them in different positions than I remembered. A hand raised, a he'd turn it slightly. I joked to Jan that they were moving on their own. He didn't laugh. Instead, he looked at me seriously and said, "Don't jokey about that. Weird things happen here at night." Jan's words stuck with me. The following night, the store felt heavier, the silence more pressing. I was restocking in the home goods section when I heard a whisper. I froze, my heart pounding. It was like someone was talking just behind the shelves. I mustered the courage to peek around the corner. Nothing. No one. Things escalated quickly after that. One night, while in the electronics department, all the TVs turned on simultaneously, static filling the room with a harsh, crackling noise. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I rushed to turn them off, but each time I hit the power button, another TV would come to life. I tried to convince myself there were logical explanations. Maybe the store was just old, the wiring bad, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The mannequins were the worst part. They seemed to watch me, their blank faces more menacing each night. I found them in the most unlikely places. A mannequin from women's clothing in the frozen food section, another from menswear staring at me from the end of an aisle. It was like they were playing a twisted game of hide and seek. Then came the night that changed everything. It was around 3 a.m. and the store was eerily quiet. I was in the back organizing the storage room. That's when I heard a sound that chilled me to the bone. A child's laughter, echoing through the empty aisles. I hesitated, my mind racing. There shouldn't be any kids here at this hour. Gathering my nerves, I walked towards the sound. It led me to the toy section. What I saw there made my blood run cold. The toys were scattered all over the floor, and in the middle of the chaos stood a mannequin, one of the child models, positioned as if it had been playing with the toys. I backed away, my heart pounding in my ears. That's when I heard it again. The dragging sound, closer this time, accompanied by a soft, eerie giggle. I didn't stick around to find out what it was. I ran to the front, grabbed my stuff, and left the store, not even bothering to clock out. Story number 2. I work security at Walmart, a job that usually involves watching cameras, walking aisles, and sometimes dealing with shoplifters. Nothing too exciting. That was until last Thursday. It was a slow night, the store quieter than usual. I sat in the back room, eyes on the screens, each showing different parts of the store. That's when I saw him, a man in a dark hoodie, following a woman through the Aisleys. He was good at it, too good. He stayed just far enough to avoid notice, but close enough to always keep her in sight. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to get a better look at his face, but the hoodie's shadow hid it. Something felt off. I grabbed my walkie-talkie and called Rick, the floor manager. "Hey Rick, can you check on aisle 7? There's a guy acting weird." "Sure thing," Rick replied. The woman, unaware, continued shopping. The man followed. I watched Rick enter the frame, glance around, and then leave. He spoke into his walkie. "There's no one here, just the lady. Are you sure you saw someone?" Confused, I rewound the footage. There he was, clear as day, following her. "He's there, Rick, in a dark hoodie, right behind her." Rick went back, looked directly at where I said the man was, and shook his head. "It's just her, I swear." I decided to go down myself. The walkie crackled. "He's still there, Rick. I'm coming down." I left the security room, feeling a chill I couldn't explain. The store was cold and silent except for the soft hum of the fluorescent lights. I reached aisle 7. The woman was there, alone, comparing 2 products. No sign of the man. I returned to the security room, puzzled. I watched the footage again, and there he was, following another customer now. I felt a knot in my stomach. How was this possible? For the next few days, I saw him in different parts of the store, always following someone. But whenever I or someone else checked, he wasn't physically there. I started to dread going to work, the feeling of being watched growing stronger each day. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Who would believe me? A stalker that only I could see on camera? Then came Tuesday night. The store was about to close, and I did my usual rounds. When I returned to the security room, I froze. The man in the hoodie was standing in the middle of an aisle, staring directly at the camera, at me. My heart raced. He knew I was watching. I grabbed my walkie, voice shaking. "Rick, check aisle 11, now." Rick responded, "On my way." I watched as Rick walked down aisle 11, passed right through the man as if he wasn't there. The man, still staring into the camera, began to smile. My skin crawled. "Nothing here, man. Are you okay?" Rick's voice crackled through the walkie. I didn't respond. The man in the hoodie began to walk, heading straight for the security room. I panicked. I had to leave. I ran out of the room, through the store, and out into the night. Story number 3. The store was big, with high ceilings and lights that made everything shine. Mom and Dad were talking about dinner, I think. Their voices blended with the noises around us. I was looking at the colors on the shelves, the reds and blues and greens all mixed together. Then, something caught my eye. It was shiny, like a little star on the ground. I left Mom and Dad's side to see it. It was just a can. But when I turned around to go back, Mom and Dad weren't there. I looked up and down the aisle, but I couldn't see them. My heart started to beat faster. I called out, "Mommy, Daddy," but they didn't answer. My voice sounded small and lost. I felt like crying, but I didn't. I thought I should look for them. So I started walking. The aisles were like a maze. I turned corners, looked down long rows, but I couldn't find them. I saw lots of feet, shopping carts, but not my parents. The store noises seemed louder now. I felt very small. A lady passed by. She was talking on her phone. I tugged at her coat, but she didn't notice. She walked away, still talking. I was scared. More scared than when the lights go out during a storm. I wanted to sit down, but I thought if I did, Mom and Dad might not find me. So I kept walking. Then I saw a man. He was very tall. He stopped and looked down at me. He had a kind face. He smiled. "Lost, little one?" he asked. His voice was soft, like he was trying not to scare me. I just nodded. I couldn't find my words. He bent down so he was at my level. "I'll help you find your mom and dad," he said. He seemed nice. I thought he looked like the kind of person who helps. I took his hand. It was big and warm. We started to walk together. The store felt even bigger now. There were so many people, but none of them were Mom and Dad. The man, Mr. Gray, he said his name was, talked to me. He asked about my favorite toys and my favorite TV shows. I answered, but my eyes were searching the crowd. Mr. Gray said maybe we should look outside. I remembered Mom saying I should never go anywhere with a stranger, but Mr. Gray was helping me find Mom and Dad. I was confused. Should I go with him? We were near the doors now. The sunlight from outside was bright. I hesitated. Mr. Gray's grip on my hand felt tighter. I looked up at him. He was looking around, not at me. Then I heard my name. "Lily?" It was another voice, a lady's voice. She was coming towards us. She had a badge that said she worked at the store. "Are you lost?" she asked. I looked from her to Mr. Gray. His smile was gone. The lady said she could help me find my parents. Mr. Gray didn't move at first. He looked around, his eyes darting from face to face. Everyone seemed to be watching now. Finally, he let go of my hand. The lady took it. "Come with me, sweetie," she said. She led me away from the doors, away from Mr. Gray. We went to a small room. It had a window where I could see the whole store. The lady talked into a microphone. "We have a lost little girl named Lily," she said. Her voice echoed through the store. I felt tears in my eyes. Where were Mom and Dad? Did they forget me? The door opened, but it wasn't Mom and Dad. It was another store worker. He talked to the lady. I heard him say something about a man, about Mr. Gray. I didn't understand. Was he not supposed to help me? We waited in the room. The lady told me about her own kids. She showed me pictures. They looked happy. I tried to smile, but I was too worried. Then, finally, the door opened again. It was Mom and Dad. I ran to them and hugged them as tight as I could. Mom was crying, and Dad looked angry, but not at me. They kept saying thank you to the lady. Outside, I saw police cars. Mom said something to Dad about the man, about Mr. Gray. I didn't understand. He was helping me, wasn't he? But Mom shook her head. She said that sometimes people aren't what they seem. We went home. Mom held me the whole way back. Dad was on the phone talking in a serious voice. He said Mr. Gray had left the store. I looked out the window, trying to piece it all together. At home, Mom made my favorite dinner, but I wasn't very hungry. She said I was safe, and that was what mattered. I thought about Mr. Gray. I thought he was nice, but maybe he wasn't. Mom said we have to be careful. There are good people and bad people. It's hard to tell sometimes. I don't like big stores much anymore. I stay close to Mom and Dad whenever we go out. I learned that even if someone seems nice, you have to be careful. You can't always tell who is good and who isn't. But the lady at the store, she was nice. She helped me. She was a stranger, but a good one. Mom says there are good people too. People who really do help. That's important to remember.